G'day and welcome to another episode of Kiwi Car Life. And if you're in the market for a performance car, there's a very good chance you're going to be choosing between something German or something Japanese. But do you go for the more comfortable, refined, featuresome, but perhaps slightly soul-lacking German car, or the more characterful but less comfortable and less featuresome Japanese car? Well, today we're going to be finding out. In terms of exterior styling, the Mk6 GTi is probably one of my favourites in the GTi lineup. The Mark 8 is not especially good looking, and while the Mark 7 does look very similar but perhaps a little more angular, it's also significantly more expensive than the Mark 6. And compared with the Mark 5, I just feel like this sort of moves the design on a little bit and just looks that little bit more modern. The drivetrains of these cars, while they share the same number of cylinders, the same displacement and the same number of gears in their transmission, they really are quite different. The Mk6 GTi has a 155 kilowatt or 210 horsepower, 280 Newton meter, 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 engine. It's paired up with a 6-speed dual clutch transmission with power naturally going to the front wheels through an open differential. The Accord Euro R, on the other hand, has a K20A, a 2-litre naturally aspirated inline-4, makes 162 kilowatts, so a little bit more than this, but only 206 Newton meters of torque, so quite a lot less. And of course, both of those numbers in typical Honda naturally aspirated fashion come in at much higher RPM than the GTi. The Accord has a 6-speed manual transmission, also sending its power to the front wheels, but it's going through a limited slip differential, which really does make a difference. The Mk6 GTi's interior, I have to admit, is a much nicer place to sit than that of the Accord Euro R. The seats are equally well bolstered, but are definitely a little bit more sort of soft and comfortable. I like the steering wheels equally on both of them, but this one does feel especially good and has the added advantage of having all the buttons on the steering wheel. This also has auto lights and wipers, which the Accord Euro doesn't have. It's got very comprehensive gauge screens all over the place. The infotainment system is so much better in here. It's got an auxiliary input, it's got USB, it's very easy to use, there's no touch elements. I love the dual zone climate control, how the numbers sort of follow the knob around as you turn it. I think that's quite cool and is a lot easier to use than that of the Accord Euros, which relegates all of the temperature and fan speed to the infotainment system, which gets very annoying to use. And the Accord Euro certainly doesn't have adaptive dampers or traction control like this car does here. I guess the only advantage with that one is that it's definitely a little bit more driver focused. There's less things to distract you, but overall both are excellent places to sit. And arguably, if you got one of the New Zealand new Accord Euros, a lot of the features that this have would be present and wouldn't be in Japanese, and thus it would be a much nicer place to sit. Driving the Mk6 Golf GTi. Now, the only reason I'm way out here is because we've driven all this way to fix that broken BMW. The coolant expansion tank hoses were rubbing against the AC compressor and thus wore a few holes in them, and now it's spat its coolant everywhere. Just BMW things, but the Golf can't say much either because it now has an engine light out of nowhere, literally at that intersection right over there, doing absolutely nothing. The engine light just came on. The car still drives fine, so I guess we'll press on with the review nonetheless. 2-litre turbo, let's see how it goes. It's certainly no slouch, but again, it's just so video gamey. It's just always been my complaint with these, I suppose. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it objectively, but something about a transmission that's just a bit more lurchy at times, even though it's objectively worse, can make it more fun. Whereas this, it's just so... While I do think it perhaps lacks a little bit of drama that stuff like the Accord offers, or at least anything sort of JDM, I suppose, it is still an absolutely cracking car to drive. It's quick, it handles beautifully, the steering feel is excellent, brake performance is good, and on these RE003 tyres, it is a very fun car to drive. And I've got to admit, for around town and stuff, just being able to just pull out, foot down, and just have those instant gear changes with a little upshift fart, it's pretty darn cool, man. I put it in sport mode, take manual control with the pedals, and it is still a marvelously fun car to drive. Just look at this. Oh, and it's quick. It's really fast, eh? The Accord Euro's advantage over the Golf GTi, as with pretty much every comparison that I do, is without question the engine. It makes even more power without the turbo and revs nearly 2,000 RPM higher, I'd say. And while the exhaust sound of the GTi is definitely better, it has a really nice tone, sounds great, and the upshift farts are excellent, man, you just can't beat naturally aspirated induction noise. It is truly a stunning noise to listen to. But look at this, foot down, limited slip diff, pulls you out of the corner, and with the tune now, boy, this thing is quick, eh? Just the mid-range torque is absolutely sensationally good. You just hear that sudden burst of induction noise as it cracks into VTEC. There it is. And my goodness, is this thing a masterpiece to drive. Really, this whole video is going to come down to what you like. They can both be excellent dailies, more so in the case of the GTi. Excellent track cars, as I discovered, probably more so in the case of the Euro R, but both equally fantastic in their own right on a twisting back road, and above all else, two marvellous engines paired with them as well. So there we go. If you want a performance car, definitely keep these two on your shortlist, and I'll very much look forward to seeing you again next time.